this scene. Belshazzar and 1,000 of his guests and servants having a big feast. They're drinking wine, probably listening to some music, and just having a good old time. And then, all of a sudden, out of nowhere, a mysterious hand appears writing on the wall. And no one at this feast can read the words on the wall. Not even Belshazzar's wise men can read them. But then Belshazzar's mother remembers a chief of Nebuchadnezzar's wise men, and his name was Daniel. Now, we all know who Daniel was. He was a very faithful and true servant of Jehovah. So after hearing this, Belshazzar had him brought to the feast. And when Daniel arrived, sure enough, he could read the words on the wall. Let's find out what these words say mean. If you'll turn in your Bibles with me to Daniel chapter 5 and verses 26 through 28. That's Daniel chapter 5, verses 26 through 28. This is the interpretation of the words, meaning, God has numbered the days of your kingdom and brought it to an end. Tekel, you have been weighed in the balances and found lacking. Perez, your kingdom has been divided and given to the Medes and the Persians. So, this was a warning written on the wall, and this warning terrified Belshazzar. But now, we need to ask ourselves why. Why has God numbered the days of their kingdom? Why have they been found lacking? Why has their kingdom been divided? Well, let's find out the answer to this. Let's back up a bit in our Bibles and turn to Daniel chapter 5, but verses 3 and 4 this time. That's Daniel chapter 5, verses 3 and 4. Then they brought in the gold vessels that had been taken from the temple of the house of God in Jerusalem, and the king and his nobles, his concubines, and his secondary wives drank from them. They drank wine, and they praised the gods of gold and silver, of copper, iron, wood, and stone. Okay, so now it makes sense. They were committing very bad sins at this feast. They were worshiping false gods, and it looks as though excessive drinking played a huge role in all this. We know that Proverbs chapter 20, verse 1 says wine is a ridiculer if used improperly. And did you happen to notice what they were drinking out of? Belshazzar must have been so tipsy that he ordered the vessels to be taken from the temple of Jerusalem so that he and his guests and his concubines could all drink from them while praising their false gods. Now, do you think maybe it's because they ran out of cups to drink from, or bowls to eat from, or cups to drink from and, bowls to eat from? Well, of course not. I mean, they were rich after all. They intentionally and deliberately used Jehovah's vessels for praising false gods. He showed no honor to our great Creator at all. He meant to exalt his false gods above Jehovah. Can you believe the nerve of Belshazzar, the prideful thinking he had developed? That's like a criminal robbing a bank and not only taking the money, but going out in the street and dancing around and flashing the money in front of the police officers. No doubt he'd be arrested right away. Daniel reminded Belshazzar about Nebuchadnezzar and why he was removed as king. And that's because of his prideful thinking, which Belshazzar already knew this, so that made him even more accountable for his actions. Well, what was the result of this proud king? Let's turn to our last scripture, and it's in Daniel chapter 5 and verse 30. That very night, Belshazzar, the Chaldean king, was killed. And interesting enough, while Daniel is still speaking, the Medes and Persians have already begun to attack Babylon. They captured the city and killed Belshazzar. The handwriting on the wall came true that very night. We can see his arrogance against Jehovah cost him his life, and Jehovah didn't hesitate to destroy him right away. A lesson for us? Sounds like Belshazzar should have learned humility, and maybe he would have avoided disaster.
Oh, right for me. That was your first number 3 talk. I've given the number 1 talk several times, but you're like a born natural. You did a nice job, very nice job, as you can tell by the applause. And one of the things that really added value to your talk was you had excellent visual contact, you had really good gestures, expressions on your face. These are all part of the suggestions to have an effective talk. Matter of fact, that's what you were working on page 122 under gestures and facial expressions. And it mentions there, as you gain experience and become more at ease in speaking, any emphatic gestures that you do use will express your inner feelings naturally, demonstrating your conviction and sincerity. There we go once again with that. They will add meaning to your speech. So just kind of highlight again what I just mentioned. So I thought you did very well, as well as all the students this evening. Just to briefly mention next week's